Hi, I'm Liv,
And I'm Britt.
and this is the Reclaimed Motherhood podcast.
This podcast is about coming back home to ourselves as women and as mothers.
We're here for the honest conversations, the ones about intuition, fertility, birth, parenting, relationships, holistic health, and the many seasons of womanhood that shape us.
We'll be sharing our own lived experiences, the things that we've questioned, unlearned, and reclaimed, so you feel encouraged to trust your body, your instincts, and your own inner knowing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Reclaimed Motherhood podcast. Britt and I are so excited to be back. And we are going to continue talking about birth like we did last week. If you listened to our episode last week, we were kind of talking about a variety of things that we didn't necessarily think we were going to talk about, but we kind of went off on a couple tangents. But this week we wanted to share a bit about each of our pregnancies and births and share some of our birth stories, and just the different experiences that we had with each baby.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yay! So, do you want to go first? Or maybe we can go back and forth and kind of like, I don't know. What do you think would
Yeah,
make
let's
sense?
go back and forth. Let's go back and
Okay.
forth.
All right. So, do you want to share about your first birth?
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, I can totally share about my first one. So, my first one, I'll preface with I was 19 years old, so I was a young mama, and I was in a really unhealthy marriage. And so I didn't have the greatest support person. So I can start there because I feel like that's a really important piece of my story.
Mm-hmm.
The entire pregnancy, I was going in for everything that they recommended I go in for. So, of course, I went in for and confirm the pregnancy, and then it's do the blood work, and then it's do the scans and do the urine testing and do the drink the poisonous, they call
Glucose.
sugary drink. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't read the ingredients on that. I did all the things through that entire pregnancy, and I just remember there were so many moments of like there's like this excitement about going into your doctor's appointment and getting this reassurance of like, oh yeah, everything looks great, everything's on track, everything looks good. And it just felt like I was building up so much fear and anxiety along the way throughout my pregnancy. And I wasn't getting that like positive reassurance every single time I went in. There was
Yeah.
like, oh, well, let's keep an eye on this and look at these numbers. And, so there was just, I was carrying a lot of fear and anxiety throughout. Um, so I'm going to fast forward to just the birth and
Yeah.
the labor and I just wanted to point out like I was totally outsourcing the entire pregnancy and also the unhealthy relationship. So that does play a role. But my laboring, I started laboring at my home. And this went on I just remember my husband had gone to work and I had been up for a couple of hours kind of laboring, but I didn't tell him. And
I feel
then
like that's a story I've heard many times.
I was like, I do not want him to know that this could actually be happening right now. And this at this point in my life at 19, even though I was the oldest of four, I don't recall any pregnancy birth stories. I didn't have any women in my life sharing those kinds of things. I don't remember being exposed to anything, but I knew I always wanted to be a mother. So I was very excited about that.
Yeah.
Throughout the laboring at home, I just remember being like just young new me was just like, wow, like this is wild. And
Mm-hmm.
just moving from the kitchen to the shower to the bathtub to the toilet, and there was something really beautiful about it just being me alone, that
Mm-hmm.
for hours doing this, and this everything was like intensifying. And I just remember thinking, this is so cool, and it's happening.
Well, I was
And I
gonna
knew,
say that's kind of like an inner knowing. Like you just
yeah,
describing, I was home, I was by myself, I was going from here to here to here. It's kind of like you were like, oh, I can do this. My body's capable of doing this. So it's fascinating to hear that when you're reflecting back.
yeah, especially when throughout I don't have experience, or like I wasn't at that moment for whatever reason. I
Right.
wasn't feeling the need to outsource. And so there was like this intuition at that moment that I was listening to. Um, and I remember I had a doctor's appointment scheduled that day. And so part of me
Mhm.
was like, maybe I just wait till my doctor's appointment. And then everything just kind of ramped up. And I remember calling my dad flying in and driving me to the doctor. And I was like, I'll just go to my appointment. And I was like, I knew I was in labor, but I was like, my dad was like, do you want me to call
You're like,
your husband? I was like, no, don't call him. Don't call him. And anyway, so I ended up, they were like, you are in full on labor. I had her like 2 hours later, but they did end up calling my husband, which was unfortunate. And anyways, I just remember getting in there and they were trying to get an IV in me. I didn't want an IV and they had given me Pitocin
hmm.
and
Did they
didn't
ask
know any,
you?
no. There was no like, hey, it was just like, it was kind of chaos. And I think they didn't realize how far along I was. I don't
That's what
know.
I'm saying. It doesn't
Yeah,
sound like you needed
needed
Pitocin, so it's
Pitocin.
bizarre.
Right. And so having the knowledge that I have now, I'm still just like, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is that I was trying to crawl out of my body.
Mm,
I was so in so much pain and full of so much fear and anxiety that I remember literally trying to crawl out of my own body and escape it all. And being where I'm at now and having the knowledge I have now, I'm like, one, it was the environment.
mm-hmm.
Two, like you can't be in a space with that lighting, strangers sticking their hands in your vagina, telling you to do this, telling you to do that, all this stuff going on. It takes you out of your animal body.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're up here in your head. And then if you have a
Mm-hmm.
support person that's being a turkey,
Mm-hmm.
then you're like, what I'm saying is like, I'm all in my head at this point. And I know that if I had stayed at home,
Mm-hmm.
I would have had a completely different experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I ended up having an episiotomy. Again, not conversation, no conversation happened, just an
Oh my
episiotomy.
gosh.
Um, and yeah, and the whole I reflected on that like that was such a nightmare. It was such a nightmare. I
Especially with
wish
how it started.
with how it
Like
started because
what?
it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wish that there had been somebody that I would have known because now I do birth trauma integration, right? Or birth processing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a beautiful thing because it's not just me that carries a story like that. And I think that could have had that could have influenced me in a way where I would have decided to not have any more children because
I
of my
know.
birth
I
experience, right?
know.
And those are the birth stories that are being shared. And that worries me because um, it's concerning because those stories is not a reflection of birth.
Right.
Those stories are a reflection of what happens. Like I said, when you put yourself into that system and you're walking into bright lights, medications, strangers, chaos, a lot happening around you, you're taken out of your animal body, right?
Yeah.
And also having an awesome support person is a really big help, of
Well,
course.
feeling supported and safe are those are two of the most important things, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're not feeling supported and you're not feeling safe, like you said, you're in your head and you're like, okay, I have to manage this, I have to manage that, I have to manage these people who are
Mhm.
not respecting what I ask. They're not even asking me for my input
Mm-mm.
over my birth and my body. Like
Mm-mm.
that is a problem. And it's so normalized within our society that like that's just what it is. You go into
Yeah.
the hospital, you're given pitocin, or you're induced, or you get a membrane sweep, you get an IV immediately. They do cervical checks. Like it's so normalized that that's what it is,
Mhm.
and it does not have to be that way.
No.
And I think it's part of why like I wanted us to share about the differences in our births, um, because it bothers me so much that our society just views birth as an emergency as something to be managed, and it's just like, are there situations where women do need help? Sure, but
Sure. Yeah.
but birth in general is not a medical emergency. And
Mm-mm.
so the fact that it's just that's the standard protocol because people have not seen physiological birth, that
Mhm.
like that's not okay. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like even in listening to what you're sharing, you're like, no, they didn't say anything. They just did this, they did that,
We
X,
just
Y,
did
and
all
Z.
the
There was
same.
no conversation. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
literally your body.
It's
How
my body, and you don't feel like it's your body. It's when
no.
you're in there, I think that's part of why I was, like, trying to climb outside of it because I was like, it's like there's a disconnect that has to happen out of survival mode. So that's a
Yes.
natural biological reaction to the experience that I was having, right? And another really interesting piece about that is that, I didn't even nobody said anything about my placenta. I never saw my placenta, right? So this is like a
Okay.
normal thing that that's normal to me now when I'm working with women. Like, we have these conversations around the placenta. It's a big deal. But it's like, it was just probably likely, I was probably being sutured up and in like this disconnect,
Yeah.
um, where I wasn't really present to experience it all. But also, I'm like, did they even say anything to me about removing it? I
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
Right. I know. It's so there's just a part of me that wishes I could go back in time and see where this massive disconnect happened and why it happened and why it was just allowed for birth to be viewed this way. Because I think about, I think we talked about it last time, just like this feeling of euphoria after you give birth and you're at home
Yeah.
and it's undisturbed and you're like you feel like you're on like a birth high, and it's just I
Yeah.
feel like if our society and women in our society knew what that would feel like it would be so different.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's like
I'm
we were talking about before with the reward system, right? When you're and it allows God that symphony of hormones that God created, it allows it all to play out exactly how he designed it to.
right.
So of course there's a really lovely blessing at the end, right? Like of course there is.
And that's the thing though, is that it's like I think that that mindset in our society is like, oh, it's going to be inconvenient. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like, no, I'd rather just have the instant gratification, you know?
Oh
And there's
yeah.
this mindset, it's just like, no, A, give me all the drugs. B, I'll just get a C section because it'll be
Yeah.
faster and easier and quicker. And then my baby will be here.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. I just have a hard time with it. But I mean, I know everybody makes their own choices, but I feel like so many moms and babies are robbed of that experience and that feeling.
Yeah, and honestly, like you're saying, they're robbed of it because I think I think there's likely a small number of women that are choosing C-section or opting for that because it's an easy way out.
Yeah.
I think it's likely that the 40% or more of women that are having C-sections, they are coerced
Oh,
into a C-section, you
yeah,
know?
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
And I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone gets to make their own choices, but I want
yeah.
women to know what all of their choices are and to just
Hmm.
know that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to feel that way. You don't have to feel like you're just another part of like another number in the system and that your
Right, because if you
baby's
don't know your options, then you don't have any.
no.
Mhm.
Um, so before I had my daughter, is when I think I said that on the podcast is when I started doing doula work. So I was literally pregnant while I was doing all the trainings for birth and postpartum doulas, and I'm so glad that I did them, and I'm so glad that I started attending births as a doula because it was just helpful for me to a see what it was like and see how they kind of did things at different hospitals was interesting too. Um, and B, just like learning about myself as someone who was about to have a baby. And so I was very aware of what I wanted and what I didn't want. Um, and my daughter's dad and I are no longer together. So was my ex-husband. And ultimately I gave birth to her in a hospital so a birth center within a hospital. So basically a hospital birth. I did have midwives instead of like a traditional OB, but it was really interesting because when I went in for my first appointment, I was just very much so like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. And I've gotten this question many times over the years. It's just really fascinating to me. They're like, oh, you have a medical background. Like, this is why you're choosing not to do that. I'm like, no, I just know things because these are things that I care about and I've done research on and I know what I want and what I don't want. And obviously, like, we can't plan our birth because birth goes however it goes. But
Mm-hmm.
you do, like, it's okay to have preferences about what you want and what you don't want. And so I was very straightforward with that from the beginning. And I was like, here's my list of things that I do not want to be asked. I don't want to be touched, like any of these things. And I had them put it into my file, into the system. So that way,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who was going to see me, if it wasn't the same midwife, knew what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I even brought it with me to the hospital as well when I was in labor because I was like, I don't want people asking me questions when I'm trying to give birth.
No.
Um, and so, but it was interesting because I feel like they kind of viewed me as like a difficult patient
Oh
because
yeah.
because I knew what I wanted and I was more familiar with the system and how it went. Um, I didn't go in for a ton of appointments. We did an ultrasound. I think I was like 18, 20 weeks at that point. We did one ultrasound. They asked if we wanted to do all of the genetic testing and all of that. And we opted out of that because I was like, well, I think I talked about this last time, like, what's the validity of this? So I didn't choose to do that. And I'm glad I didn't because
Mm-hmm.
it could have been, well, this flag came up and then I would have been stressed out my whole pregnancy worrying
Mm-hmm.
about that. And so I feel like with the pregnancy with my daughter, I was very not like an ignorant bliss, but I just wasn't afraid of things. Like I wasn't thinking like social media has just put so much like there's so much birth trauma and there's so much miscarriage and it's not saying that those things don't happen, but for me at that time in my life, like I just literally did not think about it. Like it didn't even come to my mind. I was like, I'm gonna have a great pregnancy, she's gonna be here, she's gonna be healthy. So that was one thing that was definitely different between my pregnancy with her and then my most recent pregnancy. I just feel like I know so much more now, so it's like you think about all these things, but I didn't go into that birth with like fear. I didn't. I don't. And it was really, really nice. And, but at the same time, I also didn't feel like I had like the best support system. Because we ended up at a hospital because that's what her dad was most comfortable with, not because it was what
Mm-hmm.
I was most comfortable with. It was like a compromise. And I did have a doula. My doula she was great. She really was. Um, and so in that sense, I did feel supported. Her dad was very supportive during the birth. Like he was there, he was very hands on. But it's for me still, I was just like, I don't know, I felt like I had to be more reserved in a hospital setting. So my labor with actually I should start when I went into labor. So I actually went to the chiropractor and I've been going to the chiropractor throughout my pregnancy and just getting like regular adjustments. I didn't do any induction point adjustments or anything like that. She just like adjusted my hips and then like I kind of felt like a trickling almost. So it wasn't like my water actually broke. It was just like a small little gush. And I was like, that's different. And so I just went about my day. I actually went and I walked my dad's dogs because he was traveling. And then I got home and I was like, I don't know, like I feel kind of normal, but also like more trickling. Um, but I wasn't crampy at all at that point. So that was in the afternoon. And then I didn't say anything to her dad at any until I think like 7 or so. I like sat down to try and eat dinner and I was just kind of crampy and like kind of uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, something's definitely different. And then I was like, maybe I'll just go take a shower and try and lay down or whatever. And so I took a shower. And then when I was in the shower, or actually, I called the midwives before I got in the shower. I went in the shower, and then while I was in there, my water broke and my mucus plug came out at the same time while I was in the shower. I was like, oh, this is very convenient. um, but I had started kind of feeling crampy before the shower, but there was nothing consistent. Then after my water broke, things definitely picked up. So I got out of the shower. I was kind of paying it. I was timing my contractions, like how long in between, how long they lasted. Um, and I was like, I just kind of feel like this may happen. So I really did not stay home for very long because I feel like the intensity just picked up so quickly. And we had to drive probably like half hour, 45 minutes to the hospital. And since it was my first birth, I didn't know, like, is she going to be born immediately? Maybe, who knows? Um, but I do remember being like, this is not as bad as I thought it was. Like they make you feel like birth is gonna be so, so painful and so uncomfortable. And I remember when I was laboring, I was like, I mean, like it's intense for sure, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I don't even like saying like as bad. Like that sounds horrible to say when you're describing being in labor. But I feel like people were like told me it feels like the most intense period cramps you've ever had. And yeah, I mean it was cramping for sure, but I kept expecting it to be more and more intense, and it wasn't. And I'm someone who I guess has a high pain tolerance, is what I've been told. So for me, I was like, yeah, it's intense, but it's nothing that I personally feel like I can't handle. And
Mhm.
so I remember being in the car and being in labor is absolutely brutal. I do not 0 out of 10 recommend that to anybody.
Same, same.
It's not. I remember being in the car in the front seat, and I was like, "Wow, this is absolutely horrible." And I was like giving her dad directions while we were driving. Oh my gosh, unnecessary, but I was doing it. And so we get there, and we didn't know where to park. So then I was like, "Okay, cool. Now we have to figure this out." It's just like another logistical piece of it. So then we ended up parking in one spot, and then her dad had to go back and move our car somewhere else. So I was there in triage, and I threw up within like 10, 15 minutes of getting there, I feel like. And I hate throwing up. It is my least favorite thing. I really, really, really
Mhm.
don't like it. I generally do everything I can to avoid it. But
Same.
yeah, I was like, I will take anything else. I just really don't like throwing up. But they were like, I distinctly remember being in triage. I threw up, and one of the nurses, or I don't know who it was, labor and delivery nurse or someone, whoever, they were like, she's going to have this baby if we don't move her some like to a room. Like I distinctly remember someone saying that in passing, and I was like, okay. But they did do a cervical check when I got there, and I don't even remember if I said, yeah, let's do that. Like I genuinely don't remember. I don't feel like I would have agreed to that, but maybe I did in the moment because there was so much happening. But that was super, super uncomfortable. I did not enjoy that. I also don't recommend it um,
Mhm.
unless you feel like it's going to be beneficial to you. I don't know. It was not for me. So I think we got to the hospital around like 10:45 or 11, and then we got moved up to a room. My doula was there, my daughter's dad was there, and I labored on my feet pretty much the whole time because that's what felt best for me. They did have a tub that I could labor in, but I couldn't give birth in. So I tried the tub. I literally got out within like a minute because I was like, I just don't like this. It was not for me. And I thought that I was going to, like, it was on there as like an option on my preferences or whatever, but I immediately got out. And I just remember I did a lot of swaying. I would sit on a birth ball in between contractions. Um, and then I don't even know. I was like up on the bed on my hands and knees a little bit, like leaning on the back. But I was mostly on my feet majority of the time, just because that's what felt best for me. And I feel like in my mind, I was like, gravity is gonna help me in this situation. Um, So I did that, and then I ended up getting onto the bed and pushing her out. But I do remember just like in my head, like I feel like I was so quiet. Like I was so, like I was saying before, like I just feel like I was so reserved. Like I was just so in my head. I was focusing on breathing, and it wasn't a bad thing. Like I feel like I was in the right headspace, but I also was like also very mindful of the lighting in the room and the people coming in and out of the room. And there were so many different people coming in and out. And that was one thing that
Mhm.
I definitely did not enjoy during my labor, during my birth, even in my postpartum. Um, and so I ended up pushing her out. I was on my back technically. And I just remember, like, literally, as I'm pushing her out, the midwife is like, wow, you have a really tight pelvic floor. I'm just like, how is that helpful right now when I'm giving birth? I
Yeah.
don't understand. Um, but yeah, she was born pretty quickly considering it was like my first baby. So my entire labor was probably like 4.5 hours.
Wow.
Um, but the midwife was definitely, it was like definitely more medicalized. Like I had a both birth photographer, so like you can see like her putting her hand like on the inside of my vagina and her kind of like shifting things, and so I definitely didn't enjoy that. um,
Mhm.
but at the time I don't think I really like realized in that moment, because there was so much happening and so many people came into the room as I was giving birth to her. So that was definitely different than my second birth, obviously. But um, and actually, this I will always remember this because it actually really bothered me. There was one nurse who came in. She was an older nurse. She was definitely worked in like labor and delivery for so many years. Um, but she came in and I immediately smelled cigarettes. And I was just like, this is not what I want to smell, right? And she came right by my right, like right here. And she was trying to be encouraging and like coach me. But I was like, you literally smell like a cigarette.
That's
And
so offensive.
it was so offensive. And so I will always remember that. That'll never
Yeah.
forget that part. But, and also just like there's so many people coming in and out, so many people. And
Mhm.
um, like having to say like, no, I don't want her cord cut right now. Like I still had to advocate for myself, even though it already been like stated and clear as to what I wanted and didn't want. And then also like handing her over to someone who's not me or her dad to like weigh her and do all of that was just like, in hindsight, it's so weird to think about, like they brought
Mhm.
her over to a scale away from me after I literally just had her, like it's crazy to think about.
I agree with you.
Um, and just like medical gloves touching her and all the things. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
it's just different.
Yeah. It's so different. When you were sharing about how you were laying on your back, I was like, oh, yeah, for that first one. In fact, I remember there was extra nurses in there to help kind of hold me down
Oh,
while I was giving birth. Like I remember one of them was trying to keep a blood pressure cuff on me because the
oh,
monitor thing wasn't work. And then like the IV, there was like so many trying to do so many things at the same time. And I didn't want the things. I just remember I was being forced on my back.
yeah.
And so obviously that's another contributing factor to being like excruciating for me, you know? So
Well, that's the
yeah, a
thing.
good point.
So I knew for me, the IV, I am not, it's so funny. Like people have always made fun of me for this. Like I'm not a needles person. I don't like needles. I don't like shots, like all of that stuff. And I have like 9 tattoos. But when it comes to medicalized stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
absolutely not.
It's so funny that you say that because when I was in dentistry and we did sedation dentistry, and so the people that would come in and we'd have to try and get an IV started, they were the most fearful, or even injections in the mouth. They were the most fearful of needles, the
Yeah.
ones that were like the most tatted. It's like a thing, or like even RNs seem to be the most fearful. And
Yeah.
it's just funny. I had to interject and share that because I don't know what that is.
No, I don't know what it is either. I'm like, I don't know when it has to something to do with medicalized stuff. I'm just like, do not, no, thank you. Um, but that was one thing I forgot to mention. I did have the electrical fetal monitoring thing around my belly the whole time. I hated that. That was the most annoying thing to me.
Well, and
Um,
the noise too. It's not even just
yeah. It's
Yeah.
that was really annoying. And I remember like even when you go and you look at pictures, like you can see the indent from where the monitor was, and it's just like, ugh, I did not enjoy that.
Mm-mm.
Um,
No.
but I will say it wasn't like traumatic for me, but I do feel like if we're talking about the immediate postpartum, there's you can't rest. Like they had so many rules about what I could and couldn't do, and I was just like,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna listen to you when in
Oh,
regards
yeah.
to it. They were like, oh, we'll just take her to the nursery and you can sleep and blah blah blah. And I was like, no, thank you. Like I literally just gave birth to her. Why would I want you to take her away from me?
Mhm. Oh,
What
yeah.
happened?
I remember even at 19 years old, I was like, "No, she's gonna stay right here next to me," you
Yeah,
know? I'm not putting her in the little bassinet thing. I'm not, even as young as I was like, "No." Like, that felt super wrong to me. I'm like, "She's gonna stay right here with me," you know?
yeah, and I just feel like it's so normalized for them to be like, yeah, I'll just bring your baby to the nursery. Right here, buddy. It's okay.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and like I'll just take her to do a test, or you can't hold her when you're like laying in bed. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like this is my
Yeah.
child. It was just so weird. And then they come in and they're checking all the things every hour or whatever, and you're just like, you can how can anybody rest? And
Mm-mm.
it's not just in postpartum, like they do that in hospitals in general, but people
Yeah.
can't actually rest when you're coming in and out and doing all the things.
Mm-mm. It's true.
So yeah, that was my first birth experience.
Hmm. Well, I guess I can go into my second, which would have been 80 and new husband
New.
and new husband. And yeah, I pretty much knew it. We lived like out in the sticks. So I knew I needed a lot more time to get to a hospital. I knew that in my
Yeah.
mind. I wanted to have a home birth, but he was like, no, do it in the hospital. That was so weird, probably 18 years ago, anyways. Um, to have a baby at home. I think that there was like a show on TLC or something that inspired me.
The show
Um,
you'll see. I'm just
I
gonna
know.
plug my laptop in real quick. My battery is. I'm
Oh yeah.
listening, so keep talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. Um, yeah, so I went ahead and went through the labor process knowing from my first one, like that's where I felt best was at home. And so I just moved around at home. And actually, I think I labored throughout the night when my kids were sleeping and my husband was sleeping. And then I woke them up that morning pretty early, probably like at 6. And the kids were super excited that I was in labor. And I was like, we got to go right now. Um, and yeah, I remember my husband being really excited and he was like, all right, let's take a picture. And I remember looking at him like, what, right now? Anyways, we ended up getting in the car and, flying to the hospital. And then I just had her, probably, I think it was like at 8:30. So somewhere in there. That's so many years ago. I can't actually remember, but she was born at 8 something in the morning. Um, but I knew going in there, I was like, do not put an IV in me. I do not want to deal with people and blood pressure cuffs. And I'm not laying in that bed. And at that time, I was like, until it's time, because
Yeah.
I don't know of any other way to do this other than them saying, this is how you do this. I
Right.
remember they kept on encouraging me, lay in the bed so I can check you to see where you're at. And I was thinking, like, that doesn't matter. So, kind of like, I knew I was really close.
Yeah.
So I remember just walking around and like you said on your feet, like that's how I felt best too, just walking around and kind of like hanging out. Um, yeah, and I just remember being on my back, but I remember thinking like this is nothing like the first time, and you know, obviously I had upgraded on husbands at that point. I had like a little upgrade there, and quite the upgrade. And then yeah, I laid on my back and labored and had her on my back. I did not have an episiotomy. I communicated that I did not want that. Healing from the episiotomy was one of the worst things that I've been through, and I've been through a lot of medical things.
I can't
Um,
imagine that.
ugh, and here's the thing: is they'd cut me. and then you know what happens after you make a cut, like it tears further, right? So I torn, it was quite the tear, and so there was sutures all the way up, and I struggled actually with discomfort from that for a really long time. It's only until recently that I haven't. So it's just, I don't recommend it. Also, like doing surgeries in the mouth, which I feel is the same, it's like very comparable. We learned doing surgeries, I'm totally going off track here for a second, but doing surgeries in the mouth, we learned that instead of using a blade or something to cut tissue, like if you're doing a graft or something, the patient healed much better when we reflected the tissue, like tearing it, so that like those fibers, like imagine like Velcro, that it would heal a lot faster, right?
Hmm.
So if you do that in the mouth, I noticed the healing because I would also do the post-ops with these patients, and I would see the patients that we did the newer way of doing it, which was tearing the tissue rather than cutting the tissue, they healed so much better, so
Yeah.
much better. So I just wanted to make that point right now. That's why I'm derailing. I'm like, know that if you tear, you're going to heal so much better and faster
Than a cut.
than if you're cut. So
Yeah.
um, I went off track for a reason. I'll go back.
It's an important
So
fact.
that's an important fact. I'm going to drop that in here. So in labor, so I had her laying on my back, and I remember thinking like, oh, that was not so bad. That was not so bad. I actually want to do that again. Not right after. I don't think I said that, but I'm like, I actually want to do that again. Um, yeah, so that's a very short story actually, because it was pretty uneventful. Because my prior birth, I knew, I was like, I didn't know, I didn't have like a lot of knowledge, right? But I knew I did not want that same experience, and so I went into it, pretty strongly, up against some of the things that are considered normal. Um, but yeah, I was still heavily involved in the system up until that point, because I was going in for regular cancer checks for cervical cancer and stuff for many years after having my first one, which is like a whole nother thing. But so I was pretty in the medical system at that point, even when I had her. So yeah, that story is much shorter. You can go ahead and move into into your
But
last one.
it's good though that you went into your second birth being more aware of these things and knowing these things.
Mhm.
And I mean, we were talking before just about like what we knew then versus what we know now. Like it
Mhm.
always changes each year, and
Mhm.
it's actually one of the things that I think is like such a blessing about getting older is that we learn so
Oh,
much every
yeah.
year.
The wisdom.
People are so afraid of getting older.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I know so much more now than I did then, and
Yeah.
I can make better decisions. Like it's a positive thing.
Mhm.
But so with my birth, my most recent birth of our son, um, I knew that. So I'm remarried, and so different dad, similar to Britt. um, an upgrade for sure, for sure. But it was funny in hindsight because dating in this day and age was something that was very intimidating to me because I was very specific about the type of person that I was looking for and someone who would honor motherhood and valued family and children, who genuinely wanted to be a husband, who genuinely wanted to be a dad. And having him be so supportive made a world of a difference in how I felt before getting pregnant and during my pregnancy and during my labor and during my birth. There was no part of me that was like, he's going to try and get me to do what he wants to do, what he wants me to do, what he feels is best. Um, and I know that there's a piece of pregnancy and labor and birth that men literally cannot understand. And it's not their fault. It's just that they're men, they're not women. They can't experience the same things that we can. And so there's a part of them that does have this fear of, okay, well, I want to make sure my wife is okay and I want to make sure my child is okay. And I genuinely understand that. So that was something that it wasn't ever something that came between my husband and I. He was just like, I just want to know all the things. He's like, I want to be informed about, if this happens, then what do we do? Like, then what's our plan? He is very much so like, okay, well, if we have to pivot, which way do we have to go? And so for this birth, we decided to have a home birth, which I was very happy about. We have a great midwife, and we also hired a doula for this birth as well. And um, reflecting back on this labor, I don't know that I necessarily would have like really needed the doula that we had, but we decided to hire her because for like my daughter was at my birth, and so for her, like, this is new for her. So I was like, I don't know what it's going to be like for her. I don't know what it's going to be like for Connor. So I was happy to have somebody there who could be there for them or whatever. Because we were talking about it afterwards, and my husband and I were just saying like, well, we could have just had like one of your friends, like one of your close friends. And I was like, yeah, but like my very best friends who I would want in my birth space don't live in our state. And so that's
Let's
like,
move in for a couple months just in case.
I literally, my friends and I have talked about that because one of my friends is pregnant right now. And I was like, we can just come there for a couple months and then just be there. But obviously, there's logistics to all of that. But so with him, I was really hoping that it would be like on a weekend. And I know you can't choose when you give birth, but
I think we all do that stuff though.
yeah, I was really, but there is a part of it that I do wonder, like, does that play a role in when you actually go into labor? Because I went into labor on a Friday night. So, like, I knew my husband was going to be home. I knew my daughter was going to be home. I knew he wouldn't have to go to work the next day. And so there's a part of me that's like, what, you telling your story? You said I was ready to come.
He has something to interject.
Um, but so this time around, I didn't set the expectation of having him like around the same time that I had my daughter, and so he came later. Like, if we're really looking at due dates, he came later than my daughter did, and I just went about like we had a normal day. We did our homeschool stuff. We walked the dogs. We did. I think we were baking. I don't know. We spent a lot of time outside that day. I know that. We were walking around outside. My husband got home, and then my daughter left for a little bit to go with her dad. Um, and then after she left, I think I took a shower. I feel like it's like I was like I knew something was going to happen, so I just took a shower again. I took a shower. I was like, maybe my water will break when I'm in the shower. I got out of the shower, I got dressed, and then I was down here. My husband was in the shower, and I was like, I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna happen at some point soon. I was texting some of my friends earlier in the day, and I was like, he's not here yet, but I feel like at some point he will be soon. Um, and so I was standing in the kitchen, and I think I was texting my cousin or something, and my water just broke, and I was like, there it is, there it is. And then I jokingly called up to my husband, and I was like, guess what? And he goes, your water just broke. I said, yep, it did. So that was at like around 5, a little bit before 5:30. I didn't really do anything differently because the contractions started picking up, but they weren't like super intense at first. Um, but then they progressed pretty quickly. So once my water broke, I just told everybody, and I had already told like one of my friends who took photos for us. Um, she's a photographer also. She was in the area. She's like, I'm just gonna come early, and I was like, okay. So I think everybody got here around like 7:30 or so. Like, everybody was here by 8. But in the meantime, I was kind of just like wandering around the house. I was leaning on the counter and laboring. That felt good. But I was definitely able to like talk more and interact more because I have already given birth once. So I was kind of aware of the flow, and I knew when things were going to get, or I felt like I knew when things were going to get more intense. Um, So everyone arrived around like between 7:30 and 8. And I remember I did some like hands and knees we put down like a yoga mat in the kitchen, and I was just on my hands and knees for a little bit. Um, and then I think because of the sounds that I was making, everybody was like, okay, well, where do you want to be when you give birth? Do you have a preference? Do you want to be upstairs? Do you want to be downstairs? And so, because they were like, we're not leaving, like we can hear and hurt. And like, because that was the biggest difference, I think, was that I was so much louder at home than I ever was at the hospital.
Mm.
And I
Because you
remember
felt
being,
like you could be.
because I felt like I could be, because I remember being
Mm.
like, wow, I really, like after I had him, I was like, I really don't remember ever being that loud in the hospital. Like, I don't think I ever, like at any point throughout my birth, was I ever loud like I
Mm.
was at home this time. Um, and I feel like that actually helped me through my labor. Like those low, like primal sounds, like during my contractions, were really helpful to me.
Mm.
Um, and um, so we ended up moving upstairs. We did have a birth tub set up just in case I wanted to, and it was filled up. But I went in there and I was like, it was relaxing. But in reflecting on my birth, part of me wonders if I would have had him sooner had I not stayed in there for so long.
Mhm.
Because the water was, I think it was like a little bit too warm, but at the time, like it felt good. And I didn't want to be cold. That was my worry with the birth
Mhm.
tub, was being cold, because I don't like being cold. Um, so I got in the birth tub and we were upstairs. I think we were upstairs around, I remember someone had like, like on your phone, you can change it so you can see the clock, like the actual clock, and it says the time.
Yeah.
um, I could see that on someone's phone. I was like, I need to not see the time. I need you to move that, because I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to think about,
Yeah.
okay, we moved up here at this time. How long is this going to take?
Yeah.
And so they moved that. And I had no idea what time it was, and that's what I wanted. So I labored in the tub for quite some time, and I kind of did different positions. I was on the side. I sat down on my bum, but that felt like so intense to me. Like sitting down and like leaning back felt super intense to me.
Mhm.
And so I more so was like leaning over the side. But the one thing about being in the tub was that like the water was not full, like high enough. So there was a point where my midwife was like, do you want to give birth in the water? Because like you're coming up and down, like you're coming out of the water and then going back in. Um, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't really have a preference as to giving birth in water versus outside of the water. It wasn't something I was dead set on. I was like, I just want to have him. And so they were suggesting, they were like, well, it seems like it's really intense for you. So do you want to get out of the tub? Do you want to stay in the tub? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I think I want to try getting out. So I got out. Again, I had no idea what time it was, but I remember there was one point when I was in the tub with him where it was like so intense. And like in our heads, like I know that I am capable of giving birth to him, but my labor with him was so much more intense than my other labor. Like I could feel him just like shifting and moving and shifting and moving. And I wasn't moving around as much. So I don't know if that's why I could feel that so much more intensely. But I think his position was just completely different. But that there was one point where I was like, this is so intense in my head. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I didn't say it out loud, but, and then I was like, no, Olivia, like you can do this. Like, let's try something different. Let's get out of the water. Let's just see. And then I got out, I got onto the bed. I was side lying. Um, and I ended up pushing her, or excuse not her, pushing him out on my back, kind of like similar position to Lula, but it wasn't because anybody told me I had to. It was just because that's where I ended up. Um, and so I was side lying, and then I was like, you know what? I feel like he's right here. And they were like, yep, we can see his head. And so I literally like roared him out. So I was like, my husband was right there. My midwife was right there. My daughter was over here. Um, and he came out I was like, I literally said to him, I was like, son, I need you to come out, like come out. Um, because it's so interesting when people are like, did you feel the ring of fire? Like I feel like in my head when I'm giving birth, it's not like I'm like, ooh, that's the ring of fire. It's just like I know he's right there. I know he's about to come out. Um, so yeah, he came out, and I just got to pick him up and put him on my chest, and it was just so nice because like my daughter was right there, my husband was right there, like I was
Mm.
in bed, I didn't have to go anywhere. I held him until like all of the blood was out of the umbilical cord. There was no like rushing, and we just sat there and we were just looking at him, and it was really really nice.
Mm.
And then I had my doula went and made me like warmed up one of the meals that we had, and it was just really nice. It was really nice to like be at home and not feel like we had to go anywhere, and feel like everybody was actually respecting everything that I said and wasn't like pushing me to do things that I didn't want to do. It also felt good to have them there because my daughter knew all of them, and I feel like for her, like obviously she'd never seen me give birth before, so I was like, I don't know what it's going to be like for her. Like it might be a little scary for her, but she was so into it. Like she immediately after he came out, she came over, she was like touching his head, and then she was like talking about oh my gosh, what's it called?
Vernix.
The vernix. Thank you. I was supposed to say cervix. I was like, that's not correct. She was talking about the vernix, and she was like, oh, that's what it feels like. It was really cool, and she got to cut his umbilical cord, so it was just a very very different experience, and I'm really glad that she got to see that,
Hmm.
because like when you were saying earlier, I don't I don't remember like anyone in my family talking about birth in a positive way. Like there was no discussion of it. Granted, like I was not that old when my brother was born, but I don't know. There was no discussion about birth when I was younger, and so I just think for her to like see that, I hope that's really cool for her, and I hope that she feels like empowered and encouraged when she wants to have kids when she's older.
Hmm. I know. I think that's so special that she got to be there for that. I'm like, how different would it look if we were all present at our mothers, aunties, cousins, sisters? Like, what if we just witnessed, what if we grew up witnessing birth like that?
I
How
know.
cool would that be?
Yeah, and I think for
Yeah.
me too, um, having my husband see him be born and be a part of it and be right there and like support me. I could cry talking about it. Like he like anything that I needed, he was right there. He was like holding a fan. We had worship music playing. He was like, they were taking turns getting like washcloths and putting it on my forehead. And it was so different and it was so nice. And I'm just so thankful for both of them and that whole experience.
Hmm.
And then we get him in the end. It was hard
Yes,
work, but we did it.
I know. Such a gift, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
know. They're each such a gift. Yeah.
And I feel like you
That's,
just learn so much every time.
yeah. Well, and you learn so much about yourself, right? So that's what we were talking about is like you birth the way you live, right? So
Right.
however, and that's super evident in my birth stories, right? And
Mhm.
when I was young, I was definitely outsourcing
Yeah.
100%, a lot of things. And that was just me not I was losing more and more trust in myself as time was going on instead of um, you know,
Gaining it.
how, yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Should we talk about your birth with Dot?
sure. Yeah, prior to that, we actually had three miscarriages. And I feel like that's an important piece because I was still outsourcing at that point. So I was like actively trying to get pregnant. And um, so I was going in, am I pregnant? How pregnant am I? Doing the scans. And then it was like, ooh, bad news on the scan. Ooh, bad news on the scan. And then DNC and then DNC. And ooh, do I have regrets around all of that? But um, I just had like a moment of clarity, and I really believe that was totally God. And I was like, what am I doing? And I started thinking like, oh, what if the ultrasound is what is causing these miscarriages, right? So I had all these other things coming up that I was thinking about, and I still
Yeah.
don't like rule that out. I don't. Um, But what it taught me was where I was at and what I was doing and how I was living. And um, so when I decided at a point, I decided, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going back in there to check to see if I'm pregnant. In fact, I'm not even going to pee on a stick to confirm anything. I am done looking outside of me for confirmation. And I'm done looking outside of me for reassurance. And I'm just going to put my full trust in God
Mm-hmm.
and trust that if he has a desire for me to be pregnant, if that is his will for me to be pregnant, and
Yes.
to keep this pregnancy, then I will. And
Yeah.
so I was that's where I was at when I conceived Dot. And I didn't pee on a stick. I just was like, feel like I'm pregnant. And then I was like, I definitely pregnant. And then,
Isn't it
yeah.
fascinating though? That like that inner knowing.
Oh, you know what, Liv? It literally changed everything. Just like that's when I was like, this is how God intended pregnancy, our experience of pregnancy to be, was
Mhm.
completely shutting all outside opinions, thoughts, getting no experts besides me, you know,
Yeah.
on my
Well,
own
because
body.
you know your body. Like
Yes.
that's
But
like
we don't
you
know we know
even
our
saying
body.
no, but even in you saying that with both of my pregnancies, I knew I was pregnant before I took a test, both
Yeah.
times. And so it's just
Yeah.
like that inner knowing, like, and like you said, you were like, I was doing this one way, and then I decided I wasn't going to do it because I know my body and I trust in God. And that inner knowing is so, so powerful. And I
Oh my
don't think
goodness.
people realize that. And not outsourcing
Hmm.
makes such a huge difference in because
Hmm.
it's so normalized to just be like, oh, well, you should go see this person, you should go see that person. They know this and they know that, and you're like, okay, but what do you know about yourself? Whether
Hmm.
it's like you said, what is your environment like? Who is your husband? What
Hmm.
do you feel about your body? Like, are you convinced that you're not ever going to be able to get pregnant again because someone else told you that? That
Hmm.
makes a huge difference. Like if you had just listened to them. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh
it's
God.
so crazy to think.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, and the beauty of the mystery that pregnancy is,
Mm-hmm.
that experience, it's like it's a completely different experience when you you aren't looking for outside confirmation. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's and you know, if anybody follows me or knows me, like um Dot was such a surprise, and it, yeah, in so many ways. But um, I really didn't know how much I was protecting her
Mm.
by not involving myself in any kind of surveillance or testing during that
True.
pregnancy.
Very true.
And very true. And also having the knowledge I have of GNM and
Mm.
how our emotional, psychological um, well-being directly affects the baby that we're carrying.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Think of the fear that would have been projected,
So
and
much fear.
oh, so much fear and anxiety. And then I continued to protect her by free birthing.
Yeah.
So I Chris and I just had the baby at home. I had a birth keeper. So technically it's a sovereign birth instead of a free birth. But um, so I had my birth keeper. And so she came and she just like sat on the couch and read a book. And then when she saw I was in transition, she just came over and sat right in front of me. And um, yeah, it was just, I wish my girls could have been here. And I was
I
very just like, it's
know.
okay. Edie had a softball tournament, and that's where I was for the days up to that. And I actually got ready to go to the softball tournament that morning in labor, like in a very delirious. There's something so funny about early labor where you're like, maybe I'm not, but you know you are.
Maybe I'm not. Maybe I have more time.
So yeah, and similar to your story, I do strongly regret using the tub. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Do you?
that totally stalled my labor.
I know. It's so fascinating because I
Yeah.
do think like maybe there's a relaxing piece, but and then the
Mhm.
other part of me thinks like, okay, well maybe I had to be in there because maybe he would have just like flown out. I needed to chill out for a little bit, but I don't know because then I look back and I'm like, he was really working. He was working
Yeah.
to get into a position. So maybe if I was out and moving, it would have been different. I don't know.
We can't know.
No, we can't know. There's no
We
way to
can't
know.
know.
But it is funny to like because not everybody I've talked to has said that, but it's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
It's
and
just
now when I'm teaching, I make sure that my students know that I do consider it an intervention, a tub. I do
oh, it's
consider it an intervention. Yeah. Um,
because it can stall your birth.
yeah, and I don't feel like that's how we were meant to. I mean, it's fine, and if somebody chooses that, it's totally fine. I'm not
Yeah,
judging, obviously.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't think that that's how we were meant to labor and birth. But whatever.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I remember going through this birth, I was not on my back. And I will tell you that I had no strangers, I had no outside noise. There was nothing obnoxious happening other than Chris chewing
Right.
on chips and guac at one point. He wasn't. He was like he just smelled like it. And I was like, "Were you just eating chips and guac?" I just remember being like, and he just looked at me like, "I'm so sorry." Um,
To be
oh,
fair, I also did tell my husband not to breathe on me. It's in it's in one of the videos that they
it's
took.
on the birth plan. No.
I was like, do not breathe on me.
Oh, I just love the honesty, the
Yeah,
when you're in labor. Yeah, and so I was able to just move around and do whatever felt good, and I knew I didn't have to go anywhere, and that was so cool. And
yeah,
then yeah, I remember going, okay, I'm gonna get up and pee. I'm gonna get up and pee. I knew to do that regularly. And so when I got up to pee the last time, I was like, oh, it's happening now while I was on the toilet. And then I was like, okay, well, I decided that I was going to go to the pool. I just think it's so funny how we create like a story of how our birth is going to look and how it's going to happen. And then I make so many rules for myself in life
I know.
that I
I
think I
know.
was like, oh, I have to follow these rules that I made around this birth. It's so silly. And you
Yeah,
can't think clearly when you're in that space. But
no.
yeah, so I just remember I was like hanging on to Chris and I was going to have her standing up. And then I decided right in the middle, the very tiny little space that you have in between those waves of contractions, I was like, I'm getting
To
back in
say
the tub.
that's
So I
so
just like
funny.
hopped back into the tub. So silly. And then I was like, I've only had babies on my back, right? So
Yeah,
I like immediately went to like lay back. And I love those birth videos where you see the mama laying on her back and you can see the baby coming out. So I
yeah,
think that that was another thing that I had envisioned for my birth.
right.
And and I didn't have a lot of training up until this point either. This was all just
Yeah,
me. Um, Anyway, so I remember being kind of on my back and then I was like, ooh, nope. And then I just like quickly like went up to my knees and I just remember looking at Jess, my birth keeper, and I think I said something. I think most of us say something in transition like, I can't do this.
hmm,
I verbalized that. And I remember the ring of fire. And I do remember this like rotation happening and I just remember thinking in that moment, that's so cool.
yeah,
It's such a cool experience that I got to have. And then, yeah, and then I just pushed her out. And yeah, it really is as simple as I'm making it sound. And then Chris just handed her to me. And then, of course, we all were super quiet because she did not look like what we thought she was going to look like,
yeah, yeah,
you know? And I don't think any of us really knew for sure like why she looked different, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And so there was just like this moment of like silence. And I just remember like sobbing, and there were just so many feelings I was experiencing like, oh, I did it. Like this, obviously, like this high that we've talked about. When you have a physiological birth, you are given this gift of like this euphoric state that you kind of stay in for hours. It's days,
hmm,
even. It's so cool and it's so beautiful. And I just wish for every woman to experience that feeling over and over and over again in their life.
I know.
So, just hear me say that. Go have lots of babies.
We'll have all the
Um,
babies.
Go have all the babies. Keep making babies. Um, yeah, and so there was just so many feelings that I was experiencing, and so many tears, and so much quiet. And I'm just like, whew, postpartum should be like that. Like
Mhm.
nobody touched me. Nobody said anything to me. Everybody was quiet. Nobody was like, "You can do this. More push, push harder on this next contraction. Do this." No, it was quiet. It was peaceful. There was only my own. I was in my primal body with no outside voices, nobody touching me, and it was just the best birth experience. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so after she was born, again, like I said, I protected her through the pregnancy without being involved in the system. I
Right.
protected her at birth by not being involved in the system because you know that if I'd had her, even with a midwife, right,
Hmm.
there would have been so much fear and chaos. And I don't know that I would have been in a space of clarity. And I definitely wouldn't have been in a space, it would have taken me out of my intuitive knowing
Oh yeah.
100%. So, me being in a space with everybody that was just like, Mama, we trust you. Like, you know, they put it all like, this is all on you. Your call, whatever
Whatever
without any words, Liv. There were no words. Nobody said anything. It was just like this knowing in my living room.
Yeah.
And then I just laid there in the tub trying to nurse her for I think like an hour and a half. And Chris
Yeah.
was like, "Are you going to have the placenta? Are you going to birth the placenta?" And I was like, "It's only been like 10 minutes." And he's like, "It's been an hour and a
He's
half."
like, no, it hasn't.
And so, speaking of that euphoric state,
I was gonna say, I
and
really don't think we realize. Like as soon as you
no,
push your baby out and you're sitting there and you literally think time goes by so fast, but you don't feel like it's fast at all.
no, yeah. So, yeah, I ended up just like getting back on my knees, birthing the placenta. And then they were like, "Do you want to go to your bed?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I just went and laid in bed with her, of course, on the placenta for, I mean, I don't even know how many hours. We just laid there like that. And
Yeah.
I don't even know how many hours later, if it was like a full day. I mean, I know we didn't name her for several days. Like we didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, and we certainly didn't know anything else that we discovered. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so um, such a beautiful experience, and I am so grateful that God gifted me that moment of clarity, whenever that was, to not involve myself in the medical system
Yeah.
with Dot's pregnancy and birth and even postpartum. Like she's going to be 3 years old in a couple weeks, and yeah, I've still never taken her anywhere. She's
Oh.
never seen anybody. So she's just healthy and thriving. And I do strongly believe that it's because of how I trusted my intuition, and I protected her in many ways by
Yeah.
trusting my intuition and not outsourcing. So I feel pretty passionately about that.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. Like it's a powerful thing to share with other moms.
Mm,
Like you unknowingly protected her by making the choice that you did in a good,
hmm.
like, and it's been the most beautiful, positive experience for you. And
Yes.
I think that protecting your children and obviously like your mind during pregnancy is so important. And that was one thing that I was thinking about when you were saying just like if you had gone into the medical system, everything would have been so medicalized, everything would have been so fear based and fear mongering throughout your pregnancy. And that would have affected you during your pregnancy. It would have affected you during your birth. It would have affected Dot. And
Hmm.
so I think that people hearing that and knowing that you felt so strongly and so okay with it, like that's so powerful for other women to hear. um, because that was actually one thing that I did completely differently this time around for this pregnancy. And I don't know if it was because there was so much happening in my life, like we had
You did have a lot happening.
we had a lot of major losses in my
Mhm.
life this year, and I didn't know any of that was going to happen, obviously. But
Yeah.
we had just made the decision not to like tell everybody that we were having a baby. We made the decision to not share a due date with anybody. We made the decision to not share that we were having him at home with everybody because I did not want outside people questioning us, telling like any sort of fear projection. I was not interested in.
Mhm.
And it was honestly so peaceful. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
saying that like if you're excited and you want to share with people that you're pregnant, that's fine. But for me, like we told the people who are closest to us, and that felt so good. Like we didn't blast it across social media until I think it was like the end of my pregnancy that I shared it, because I just didn't want questions. I didn't want outside opinions. I didn't want any of that. And it was
Mhm.
so nice. It was so nice to not like talk about it unless we wanted to, and it was just really peaceful. And it wasn't because it was I was afraid of anything. It was just there was so much happening, and I wanted that to be like our peaceful, joyful little bubble. And
Mhm.
I think that made a difference. I do think it makes a difference.
I
And
think
then you
that's
don't have
important for you to share with women is protecting your space during that time and that you don't have to do it like everybody else is doing it, like going and
yeah,
getting like, you're expected to go and get the ultrasound pictures to show all over social media proof of
yeah,
your pregnancy and
yeah.
and sharing the excitement with all these people that you really don't know all that well.
Well, and
Um,
that's the thing too, is that it was like I come from such a medicalized family. I think I've said that on the
mhm.
podcast. Like I'm
Yeah.
literally the black sheep of the family. I'm pretty sure there's probably a lot of my family members that don't still don't know that I had him at home, just because they assume like, well, I mean, I guess
Of
if they
course
know,
you had him in the hospital, Liv.
yeah.
Like normal people. Of course you did that.
But even after, like, it's been funny. Like, people will be like, "Oh, where'd you have him?" And my daughter's like, "She had him at home." It's really funny. And then they don't know what to say. They're just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." But it
Cool.
is funny. But I feel like having conversations about like our different birth experiences are important because it's such
Mhm.
a huge like a what's the word I'm looking for, like range of different things that can happen or not
Yeah.
happen, or you, choices and being informed and where you feel safest. And I just that's the biggest thing that I want for women,
Mhm.
whether they are not currently pregnant or they are currently pregnant or they've already had babies. Like I just want them to know that you have so many choices. Like you
Mhm.
are literally hardwired and designed by God. Like that's how we're made in order to be able to give birth to our babies. Um,
Yes.
and so I want women to know, to have that inner knowing and feel confident in that and not feel like
Mhm.
they have to outsource that. And I think that's it's one of the biggest lessons that like I've learned in my since I didn't learn any of this until after I had my daughter. Like I
Yeah.
was just starting to be in tune with my body leading up to being pregnant with her, but I've learned so much more about my body and listening to my body after having her than I ever knew at when I was younger
Mhm.
because everything was outsourced. And
Mhm.
so when it comes to raising children and our family, and even people who are in our life who I really care about, who are dealing with all of these different symptoms that are coming up, it's like I want people to feel comfortable and in tune with their bodies and be like, okay, let's take a step back. Like, what is going on? How am I feeling? Like, what relationships am I in? What is serving me? What's not serving me? What's my environment like? Because I want our kids to be aware of that. I
Mhm.
don't want them to feel like, oh, this is wrong with me, so I have to go do this, or I have to go do that, or I have to go see this expert. Um,
Mhm.
I just think it's fascinating because like I keep seeing and like hearing conversations with people who are like, well, because my parents had this, that means that I definitely am going to have that, and I'm like, you cannot believe that about yourself.
No.
You
Mm-mm.
cannot believe
No.
that about yourself, and so there's even women that I've heard say, well, my mom had all C-sections, so I'm definitely going to have all C-sections. So like, it makes sense that my birth went this way. And I'm like, no, that's not, that's not true.
I
Um,
know. It's so sad. It's so sad to hear those narratives, but it's also just normal. It's normalized to have those conversations with people.
oh yeah,
And and it's
it's
so fun. I can tell you, it's so fun to raise your family to where your kids are like I think I've shared where they're like, "Oh, I'm congested." And so I'm like they're like, "Oh, stink conflict. Oh, who is the stink conflict around?" Like they have a knowledge, a general knowledge at least
hmm
of GNM where they're able to reference that and they're not like, oh, dang it, I'm sick. Like, we don't even use that
we
phrase in our
don't use
house.
that phrase in our house
Yeah,
either. I love
nobody's
that.
sick.
Love
We're
that.
not sick. It's a system upgrade, and you have an opportunity to learn something about yourself and your relationships that you're in right now and those
Yeah,
dynamics. Then that's a blessing. And so, yeah,
it
when
was.
we're sometimes we'll say under the weather because I like
Yeah,
that saying.
yeah, I know. But like you were talking about last time having a sore throat, and like that happened to me this past week, and I was like, what am I not saying that I need to say? What is happening? What is going on? And it's so interesting to look at that way and then address things and then be like, oh wow, I actually feel better. Like
Isn't that something?
it seems
Yeah.
like it's so complex, but it's really not.
Oh my gosh, we are actually pretty simple. We're actually pretty simple.
Yeah,
Yeah. Our body is always communicating with us.
they
Always.
are. And it's
Mhm.
amazing. It really is.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm. And so
blessing.
much peace. There's so much peace in walking in that knowing, that
Yeah.
trust. There's so
Yeah.
much peace that comes with it.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a whole new level of peace.
Yeah. I wish that for all mamas
I
to be
wish that
walking
for
in peace.
everybody.
Yeah.
And not having like all of these feelings of fear and anxiety and
Because
it's
that's what
just
actually makes us sick.
yes, thinking
Mhm.
that hyper focusing, the hyper focus on things um, when it comes to like a diagnosis or like a symptom is fascinating to me. It's
Mhm.
so prevalent in our society. And I'm like,
Mhm.
actually, if we just address a couple things, genuinely believe in our body's ability to heal,
Mhm.
it would make a world of a difference.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we've been chatting for quite some time. I didn't even realize. But thank you guys for coming along on our birth story journey, multiple birth stories, and just
Yeah.
we hope that we hope this is so encouraging to you, whether you are trying to get pregnant or about to have a baby. We just hope that it's encouraging and even sharing it with other women, young women who may not even be married yet, may not even be thinking about having kids. Just this is where we
Or
want to
maybe
be.
you're in your 40s and your kids are adults and you're like, maybe I do want to have another baby.
Yeah.
And maybe I've chosen not to because of
Yep.
birth trauma. Then know that there is birth trauma integration. You can work with somebody in that space and there is healing that can happen. There's healing that can happen in having another baby.
There really,
Let
I
me
was
tell
just
you.
going to say,
Oh, yes.
I
So,
think that's,
yeah.
you're so right. You said that earlier. I meant to say that. Like, there are a lot of women who are afraid to have another baby because of how their first birth went and because they
Mhm.
haven't addressed that trauma or talked
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah.
And then they do address it and then they go on to have another birth. And can be the most healing, redeeming
Yes.
thing for them. And it can be so, so beautiful.
Well, it makes me
Um,
feel emotional just talking about it. Oh, so beautiful.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also to your point where we were talking about like outsourcing things. There's also just this label of like geriatric pregnancy, which I do not
Oh,
subscribe to. Like
oh,
I'm
I had to hear
considered,
that so many times. I was like,
yeah,
please no, do not call this pregnancy.
nothing.
Don't call me geriatric.
Yeah. But it's
Oh,
fascinating to me because like I'm considered geriatric right now, which is just like
so
I'm what are you talking about? But do not subscribe to that label just because somebody says that you're a certain age does not mean that you're not able to have a baby. So do not listen to them.
no, no. Mm-mm. You can have babies over 40. No problem.
Yes, I'm probably going to, God willing. Like, I remember when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, I'll have all my kids by the time I'm 35." I'm like, "It's not happening now, so we're just gonna see what happens and keep on going."
Yeah. Love it.
All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed our birth stories and our little chat. And we're so thankful to anybody who's listening along, and we're so happy to have these conversations. And we hope that you're enjoying them. If there are any topics that Britt and I haven't talked about yet, or you are interested in learning more about, just let us know. You can email us, you can message us directly on Instagram, comment on things. We're so happy to explore new conversations.
Yep.
All right, guys, we will be back next week.
Yep. Until next time.
Bye.